The date is Friday, June 11. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Less than 10% of the population has received the first dose of a COVID-19 vaccine, despite the major vaccination drives being held by the Ministry of Health. The revelation came from Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, as he addressed the ministry's COVID-19 virtual conversation this week. The Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Jacqueline Pbcj, also gave an update on the COVID-19 clinical data. Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, says more than 161,000 first doses of COVID-19 vaccine have been administered so far.
As at Wednesday, June 9th, 2021, 161,850 Jamaicans have received the first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine. This means approximately 8% of the targeted population, and that targeted population is 1.924 million. So that's 1,924,759. That's approximately 2/3. A breakdown by region shows that of the 161,850 first doses administered, 53% had been in the Sierra region, that's the Kingston, St. Catherine, St. Thomas, St. Andrew region, 18% in the Western region, that would be St. James, Trelawney, Hanover, and Westmoreland. 18% in Southern region, Manchester, St. Elizabeth, and Clarendon, and 11% in Nera, which is St. Anne, Portland, and St. Mary.
Dr. Tufton says a single dose of the vaccine will not ensure immunity from the COVID-19 virus.
You must take the second dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine. If you had another, the Johnson & Johnson, it would be one dose, the AstraZeneca. And so for persons who have had their first dose and have completed the 8 weeks or so, there's a little room there for, you don't have to be exactly on the 8th week. And so I don't want persons to panic because they may not get it on the exact day. But there is a process to make contact with you through text messaging or calls close to that date. And then you are given some instructions as to where to go to get the vaccine.
The health minister says he's aware there are concerns among some first dose recipients who have not yet received a call to schedule their second dose appointment. He's suggesting that concerned persons return to the center where they received the first dose to inquire about next steps. Meanwhile, Chief Medical Officer in the Health Ministry, Dr. Jacqueline Pbcj, says the daily COVID-19 positivity rate is now at 2%, but persons 60 years and older continue to be most at risk of death resulting from COVID-19 complications.
3 out of 4 deaths are 60 years and older. 6 out of 10 deaths have cardiovascular disease. 4 out of 10 deaths have diabetes. 1 out of 10 deaths have neurological impairment, and 1 out of 10 deaths have chronic kidney disease.
She says hospital admissions have declined.
In terms of our admissions, our 7-day average for admissions, that also would have peaked in March. And since then, we have been steadily declining in the number of admissions. And over the last couple of days, it has been a little bit up and down, but we don't see any steady increase right now. But we are watching this carefully in terms of the number of cases being admitted to hospitals.
Despite the decline in hospital admissions, the bed occupancy levels are still measured as high level.
Just a reminder that, some persons question whether or not the decrease in our bed occupancy would mean that we would be approaching low level of risk in terms of bed occupancy. But you would see where we would have classified our present status as being at a high level of system pressure in our hospitals because of bed occupancy. And this is because although we have quite a number of beds, up to over 700, that we would have reserved as COVID-19 beds, only about 150 of those beds are really new beds. And so the utilization of beds anywhere above that 150 puts the system under stress, because it is taking up beds and resources that should really be used for general occupancy for other patients, other illnesses that presents the hospital.
6 X-ray machines are to be installed in health facilities of the Southeast Regional Health Authority, SERA. Cabinet has given the approval for award of $453.4 million contract to RL Limited for the supply and installation of the machines. Minister of Education, Youth and Information, Favour Williams, made the announcement during Wednesday's post-cabinet press brief at Jamaica House.
The hospitals to benefit are the Kingston Public Hospital, which is slated to receive 3 X-ray machines, Spanish Town Hospital 1, the National Chest Hospital 1, and the Bustamante Children's Hospital 1 X-ray machine.
On Friday, the Labour and Security Ministry held a virtual launch of the International Year of the Elimination of Child Labour. EndChildLabour2021.org says child labour has decreased by 38% in the last decade. But data shows that 152 million children are still in child labour. And stakeholders are saying that we need to accelerate the progress of measures already in place to end it.
There has been a significant rise in the number of children aged between 5 to 11 years in child labor, who now account for just over half of the total global figure. The number of children aged 5 to 17 years in hazardous work, which is defined as a work that is likely to harm their health, safety, and moral, has also risen. Those are 2 very concerning trends for UNICEF. Here in Jamaica, the available data tells us that around 38,000 children aged 5 to 17 years are affected by child labor. This figure, however, is a conservative estimate because it excludes the so-called worst form of child labor other than hazardous work. These forms of child labor include child trafficking, commercial sexual exploitation, child slavery, and involvement of children in illicit activities.
At this juncture, I want to express my gratitude to the ILO, especially, and UNICEF for providing this latest data, and to reaffirm that Jamaica will ensure our children are protected. All during my interaction with the ILO and UNICEF teams, I found them extraordinarily committed and very supportive, and a great partner to have in this effort. I also look forward to our renewed partnership as we continue to work to have a country that is free of child labor.
The Ministry of Transport on Thursday said it had received formal application from the Route Taxi Association Alliance for an 80% fare hike. The request comes 2 weeks after the Transport Minister, Robert Montague, said a fare adjustment could not be considered at this time, as many Jamaicans were facing hard times since the COVID-19 pandemic and operators had failed to improve service. On the other hand, taxi associations are lobbying for a new fare table as the cost of petrol and other operational expenses continue to rise. The ranks of the Jamaica Defence Force have been bolstered with the recent intake of members of National Service Corps. The Corps had their passing out parade recently. Prime Minister Andrew Holness congratulated them on their service to the country.
It is a pleasure for me to join you this morning as we welcome the newest members of the regular force of the JDF. I extend my congratulations to the men and women of the JNSC Intake 2020-01 here today. You have worked assiduously to meet the requirements to make this transition. Your performance over the past 12 months has demonstrated that you possess the qualities and skills requires to perform the roles assigned to the men and women who belong to the profession of arms. The rapidly transforming JDF requires men and women within its ranks who not only have a desire to wear the unit, but more importantly, soldiers who understand the value of service to nation.
And in today's extended business report, host Gabriel Thompson looks into details of the recent cash for vaccination incentive for seniors announced by the government. We also get money tips from financial coach Denise Williams, plus get our regular market updates.
Persons have until June 13 to apply for the supporting employees with the transfer of cash, set cash, and business employee support and transfer of cash, best cash initiatives. Speaking Tuesday in the House of Representatives, Minister of Finance and the Public Service, Dr. Nigel Clark, said some $3 billion Jamaican dollars was set aside in the 2021-22 budget for the initiatives. Both initiatives were renewed for the period April to June 2021.
This period, Madam Speaker, for new applications for these two components will close on the 13th of June. So what we said was that we'll continue the program April, May, and June. Applications for new applicants close on the 13th of June, which is this Sunday, and advertisements to this effect have been in the public domain for the past few weeks.
The Set Cash Grant provides unemployment support for persons from all sectors who earn at or below the income tax threshold of $1.5 million annually and have been unemployed as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Best Cash Grant supports tourism employment.
All existing applicants who were already in receipt of payments under the Set and Best Cash programs will not need to reapply for the period April to June, as long as they're not showing up on a payroll, right? Once they're in the system, they will automatically qualify for the $18,000 monthly payment, as long as they're ruled eligible and in keeping with originally defined criteria.
The Finance Minister says there are approximately 40,000 existing Set Cash beneficiaries and approximately 15,000 Best Cash recipients. It's expected that all applicants with respect to the months of April, May, and June will receive those payments beginning at the end of June.
Under the Serve Jamaica program, we expect approximately 55,000 Jamaicans who have had the unfortunate experience of having lost their employment during the time of COVID to be in receipt of their Set Cash and Best Cash grants of $18,000 per month in respect of the period April to June of 2021, which will be paid in the months of June, July, and August of 2021. And we expect this to cost in the region of $3 billion.
Dr. Clark said despite being prepared for 55,000 grant recipients, the government expects a fluctuation in numbers.
The final numbers, Madam Speaker, will depend on meeting the qualifying criteria because the economy is picking up, jobs are returning. As the Minister spoke about last week, tourism jobs in particular are returning. So it could be the case that those who had qualified and were on the Set Cash payroll as at January, when we come to look at the data as at April or May, they may be on the payroll and therefore they won't be eligible. So we will report to Parliament on the final numbers as we go through the verification and eligibility process.
He also announced the conditional cash transfer for the vaccinated CCTV program, where the government is to offer $10,000 to persons 60 years and over who have been fully vaccinated by the Ministry of Health and Wellness. In Thursday's trading session, the JNSC combined index advanced by 3,610 points to close at over 429,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 96 stocks, of which 46 advanced, 37 declined, and 13 traded firm. The junior market index advanced by 24 points to close at over 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 1834 Investments Limited, AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and Blue Power Group Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica, 138 Student Living Variable Preference, and Barita Investments Limited. Trading firm were Cargo Handlers Limited, Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited, and Elite Diagnostic Limited. Scotia Group Jamaica Limited was the volume leader with over 2 million units, followed by the Limners and Bards Limited with 1.7 million units, and Lumber Depot Limited with over 1.5 million units. In foreign exchange trading for Thursday, June 10, the US dollar sold for an average $150.16. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $125.57. The pound sterling traded for $213.54, and the euro sold for an average $185.30. Oil prices rose on Friday to fresh multi-year highs and were set for their third weekly jump on expectations of a recovery in fuel demand in the United States, Europe, and China as rising vaccination rates lead to an easing of pandemic curbs. The International Energy Agency said in its monthly report that OPEC Plus oil producers would need to boost output to meet demand set to recover to pre-pandemic levels by the end of 2022. Brent crude futures edged up 13 cents to settle at $72.65 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures added 14 cents to $70.43 a barrel. Cash, money, investments, savings. We think about our finances a lot, and for good reasons. The money you have can influence your quality of life. Financial coach Denise Williams wants to help you work out a strategy to earn more money. In this week's edition of Financially Focused, Denise shares 7 ways you can earn money.
One of the things that is on people's mind is cash. No question. So, what's the strategy? What is your strategy to earn cash? Now, there are generally 7 different ways in order to earn money. And we are looking at earned income being the first, which is usually what you get from your job or your freelance work, okay? So, yeah, that's usually, traditionally, that's the 9 to 5. Profit income. Now, we all know we have friends who just love to buy and sell. Buy a car, sell hair, buy the car, fix it up, sell it back, buy the hair, use it as a hairdresser, sell it to hairdressers, you name it. So it's diverse in terms of profit income. All right, now the next one is interest income. Now, interest income is what you earn on lending money, whether you're lending money to the bank in the form of savings, or you're taking on a bond, which is a type of investment that pays interest rates on a periodic basis, you name it. So interest income is what you earn on the cash. Another way to earn is dividend income. Now, dividend income is usually from companies listed on the stock exchange. So that is another way to earn. And what's lovely is that you get to choose. There are different currencies. So it can be Jamaican dollar, it can be US dollar, and in some cases, Canadian dollars. So, where you are, you're not limited to the currency of the dividend income. And I would also say that works for investment income, interest income, and if you earn online, your regular income can be in different currencies. Okay, rental income. We know about that one because, you're either paying rent or collecting rent. So that one is another source of a great way to have cash coming in. Capital gains. Capital gains happens when you sell the asset. So you bought it for X, you sell it for Y. The difference between X and Y is your capital gains. So that is another way to earn income. Royalty income. That one now, again, using singers, songwriters, the creative class of persons who use creativity to earn money can earn royalties because you produce one time and people use it and use it and use it, and you get paid every time someone uses it. So those are the 7 sources: royalty, capital gains, rental income, dividend income, interest income, profit income, and earned income. Those are the 7 ways you can build your cash flow. And of course, that cash flow is what you buy or build assets that build wealth.
Thanks, Denise. For more information on the development of your financial future, head on over to financiallyfocusedmedia.com or find Denise on YouTube at Financially Focused. And on that note, we close this extended edition of the Business Report Inside the News on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
We go now to news from the region. The Chief Medical Officer of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Hazel Laws, contradicted a widely circulated rumor that a hospitalized COVID-19 patient had died. Speaking Tuesday, the CMO indicated a significant increase in the number of COVID-19 cases arising out of community spread, but she emphasized that no one had died from COVID-19. Glenn Bart reports.
Last evening, we recorded 19 additional cases of COVID-19. And today, we received positive results for an additional 6 cases. These 25 cases bring the total of COVID-19 confirmed cases to 119, 119, with 105 cases for St. Kitts and 14 cases for Nevis. We have registered 53 recoveries so far and 4 hospitalizations. Ladies and gentlemen, all 4 patients are stable. There are no COVID-19 related deaths. I repeat, there are no COVID-19 related deaths.
Chief Medical Officer said a substantial number of cases are associated with the gaming industry, and importantly, data suggests that some public and private sector establishments were not following the established COVID-19 non-pharmaceutical safety measures.
A significant number of the recent cases are involved in the gaming sector. Approximately 7 entities have been impacted through the contact tracing process. Approximately 1,460 individuals have been engaged by the Ministry of Health through the contact tracing process. 870 of these individuals have been received from self-quarantine, and a remaining 590 are to be tested and discharged. So what are some of the factors driving this outbreak? Now, based on the information or data gleaned through contact tracing, we realize that the private and the public sector entities and individuals, they are not adhering to the COVID-19 prevention and control measures of, for example, the wearing of the face mask, hand sanitization, and evaluating employees upon arrival at work at the beginning of the workday. What we found is that a number of employees are showing up and are coming to work while experiencing flu-like and COVID-like symptoms. Another factor, the vaccination rate still remains below the herd immunity threshold.
According to the Chief Medical Officer, contact tracing is being strengthened and action is being taken to increase the COVID-19 testing capacity, both in an effort to control the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Glenn Bart reporting for SKN Newsline.
Police officers were called out to handle irate crowds at health centers across Trinidad and Tobago on Thursday. This as people over the age of 60 turned up for a second day to attempt to get vaccinated against COVID-19. Terrian Brown Campbell tells us more in this report.
Hundreds of elderly people and others with non-communicable diseases hurried angrily away from health centers on Thursday, disappointed to learn that only 50 people were being allowed to receive vaccines. Many told TTT News they waited on Wednesday for hours without receiving their vaccines, so they came out on Thursday only to be turned away again.
This is unfair. They don't harmonize. They say 60 and over, right? You have people out here who can't say stand up. Come on, you understand me? This is unfair to people. Whites are doing that.
Tempers flared when staff from the various health centers announced that even less persons than the day before would receive the vaccine.
I heard Mr. Dayal Singh said from A to E could get the vaccine today. I live at Champlain, so I came down this morning to get the vaccine, and I was told it was finished, and they can't tell me what to do after that.
Another pensioner expressed her frustration with the process.
Down here and get it because I'm a diabetic, and I had operation and all kind of thing. So I don't really know where to do again or where to go anywhere again, right? Because I can't walk properly. I have a spine operation.
Many of the vaccine seekers were seen using walkers, canes, and being assisted by younger relatives to get to vaccination sites. Terry Ann Brown-Campbell, TTT News.
St. Lucia's sole power company, the St. Lucia Electricity Services Limited, continues to play its part in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. The utility company recently donated over $100,000 in equipment to the Ezra Long Laboratory to ensure continuation of vital diagnostic tests for COVID-19.
As the energy that powers the nation's success, St. Lucia's Electricity Services Limited has one main goal as the country grapples with the COVID-19 pandemic, that is to keep the pandemic outside the power plants and ensure the lights stay on. Lucelec Managing Director Trevor Louisi says protecting staff was a necessary first step.
The country needed us to be at our usual best, and certainly we were reliable and dependable throughout the pandemic and the various waves of infections St. Lucia experienced. Achieving that objective and the apparent ease with which it was done is perhaps taken for granted. It belies the tremendous effort that went into transforming our work processes to work safely, efficiently and effectively within the guidelines for social distancing and the wearing of masks, and in many cases remotely. The strict sanitizing regimes and protocols for accessing the cul-de-sac power plant, and critical control rooms to minimize the risk of infection, transportation of staff to and from their respective work locations as safely as possible, and to avoid public transportation. The constant reminders to staff about observing the COVID-19 protocols, not only at work, but very importantly, off work, to minimize the risk of infection and transmission.
But Lucelec doesn't exist in a vacuum. And so, in July last year, the company reached out to Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sharon Belmar George to see how the company could help the country in its COVID-19 response.
At the time, SLASPA was completing work at the airports to facilitate the screening facilities for arriving passengers, and the CMO asked if we could cover the cost of extending the electrical infrastructure required. And we did.
In sports, we're out the blocks with athletics. Reigning Olympic Games 110-meter hurdles champion Omar McLeod ran a world-leading 13.01 seconds to equal the meet record at the Golden Gala Wonder Diamond League meeting in Florence, Italy. This was McLeod's fastest time in 4 years. He clocked 12.96 seconds in 2017. He had set the Jamaica national record of 12.90 seconds in that same year. And over to football. The Reggae Girls scored a 1-0 win over Nigeria to open the summer series on Thursday night in Houston, Texas. The win came courtesy of Denisha Blackwood's goal in the 51st minute. This is her 8th international goal. The team is gearing up for qualifying for the next World Cup set for Australia and New Zealand in 2023. And that's our package. We take the time to wish you a great weekend and pleasant viewing. You've just watched the news on PBCJ, the People's Station.